I lied my way into it and I lied my way out of it.
Have you forgiven yourself for that?
I wrestle with it sometimes because I feel that I have forgiven myself and I have a lot of compassion for that younger version of me. And, I'm getting emotional. And I still feel bad.
When we're in that place of need or want, like I want someone to see me so badly, it doesn't translate.
The more you try to be loved, the less loved you are. As you become more authentically yourself, there are people that will be confronted by that. There are people that will question it, and there are people that will leave.
I can't remember what year we first connected, but we connected first when you were living in Bali. Bali babe. And since then, you have moved to Austin, and I feel like there's been so much depth in your essence and in your character and in who you've become. And one of my favorite things is to watch women really like recreate their identity and really step into an even more bold or authentic version of themselves. So I'd love for you to share maybe even a little bit of like a before and after, like when you were living in Bali. Who was Sophia and who are you now?
So let's see. So when I first moved to Bali, I was actually going by my spiritual name, Amrita.
Amrita, the water of the gods, right?
And I was I was a Kundalini yoga teacher or becoming one. So I was really in that era of still figuring out who I was and still putting on the costumes that I felt like would make me fit in. So I wore turbans, no makeup, no hair removal, flowy white everything, mala beads, of course. And over time in Bali, I started to realize that what I was doing was just putting on another costume. And I kept thinking, I found my authentic self. I found my authentic self. And I feel that there was something really special about reclaiming my essence in each of those eras, but I was still trying to fit in. So about halfway through my time in Bali, I really started to miss some of the old parts of myself that I discarded when I started my spiritual journey, where I was like, I can't do this anymore because that's not spiritual, or I need to say namaste all the time. I have to pray and meditate all the time. I've got to, like I started doing all kinds of naughty stuff like smoking and drinking again, things like that. And I was like, I felt that it was good for me to have a period of time completely away from all those sorts of things from my past, because I had a party girl past, and kind of rewrite my relationship with all of those things, and then to invite some things back in moderation, in a way of like, hey, I can still be like a spiritual woman and smoke if I want to, as long as I'm doing it from an energy of this is something that I'm getting pleasure from, that I'm enjoying, that it's not masking anything, it's not taking away from my life. And the more permission I started to give myself to be a yes to a lot more things, the more I started to feel free in myself. And the more I felt like my nervous system relaxed, and then my true people found me. And something that my friends say about me now is that they say that when they're with me, they feel like their nervous systems are relaxed because they know that I'm going to show up as me. And then that also allows them to be them.
What a beautiful compliment. Yeah. And reflection for someone to say like, oh, my nervous system feels safe because I feel you in your truth. Like, I don't feel like you're trying to perform. I don't feel like you're trying to be someone for me or be someone who you're not. They can feel your relaxedness in your essence. And that is something that you talk about, relaxed magnetism. So I feel like that would be a really beautiful place to go next is, for women who want to be in that magnetism, and maybe they have been stuck in this performing or pushing or forcing, and they want to be more at ease with calling in things and attracting things and being in that frequency of magnetism. What would you share with them?
Yeah, I feel In my experience and in working with women also, it's that the more you try to be loved, the less loved you are. Like the more that you try to please people, the less you please them. And so I feel that first of all, it's understanding and getting okay with the fact that as you become more authentically yourself, there are people that will be confronted by that. There are people that will question it, and there are people that will leave because of it. But there are a bunch of other people that will come into your life that will be a much better fit for you. And also, I think what I've experienced is a lot of the people that kind of disappeared came back. Because I think a lot of the time it's when unconsciously on some level, our energy is saying, do you like me? Am I okay? Is this all right? Do I have your permission to do this, that, or the other? There's even people who can't name what that energy is can feel the shakiness in
Hmm.
your energy, and so they feel like, well, you're not being yourself, who are you, you've changed, all this kind of stuff. But when you really come to that place of I'm just going to be me, because it's exhausting to be anything else.
Hmm.
Like it's truly exhausting, and you rest into that, people can feel, and this is that nervous system relaxation part, they can feel that you are clear, and then they relax.
Hmm.
So I feel like it's, yes, there's going to be a messy middle, but at the end of the day, at the end of your life, would you rather have had a messy middle and end your life feeling like you've really lived who you were here to be? Or would you rather perform and contort and, wear yourself out, burn yourself out? And I don't think that that's living.
Hmm. Yeah. And what you're talking about also is when you're in that place of the people pleasing or trying to prove yourself or get the validation, there's a hypervigilance that your nervous system has to be in because you're tracking everyone else and how they're responding to you. And so the energy is focused on, like, how are they perceiving me versus the shift inwards of, oh, how do I feel around these people? How do I feel within my body, within myself? Do I feel confident in what I have to say? Or am I second guessing myself and doubting myself? People can feel that when you're in your head and when you're like, oh, I shouldn't have said that. Or, oh, I don't really like my outfit and I don't like how I look, or I don't really fit in here. And people can feel that energy. And then we almost kind of manifest the thing that we don't want.
Mm.
It's like we have people who like maybe aren't leaning into connection with us, or we feel like, oh, they're closer with other people but they're not as close with me, and we kind of manifest that reality of the thing that we don't actually want, which is so interesting. It's kind of like we repel people in a way with our energy instead of magnetize them. And so I love this piece around this is all energy. Like you could show up to the same party and then like maybe a year later you've done a lot of inner work and you're feeling so much more embodied and you're feeling so much more connected with yourself and so much more comfortable with who you are. Maybe someone that you've wanted to connect with for a long time, like they maybe didn't even notice you before, and then all of a sudden they like come up to you or they want to be in your presence, as an example. And this is true for business, this is true for romantic relationships. Like there are people, who I've even looked up to in my business where I'm like, oh, I would really love to interview that person one day. But it's like becoming a match, an
Mm.
energetic match to that frequency. And when we're in that place of need or want, like I want someone to see me so badly, like it doesn't translate to how we want it to translate. So I've so experienced that. And I think it's an ongoing journey, like I love what you shared earlier about the different phases that you went through. And you're like, oh, I thought I was being my authentic self. And what I loved how you shared about that was like, you didn't shame that part. You're like, oh, yeah, like there was some truth in that. And I was discovering who I was. And that was part of my process of getting to who I am today and where I am today. And there was still maybe aspects of performance to try to fit in.
Mm.
And I think every woman can relate to that.
Yeah, it happens right from birth, really. We are raised in a society that tells everybody, what matters is your value to other people. What matters is, are they pleased with you? It starts with your parents. Are they pleased with me? Am I being a good girl? Am I doing all the right things? And that's how we learn what love is. And it's a very conditional love. And then if we're performing, then we also need other people to perform, because we're also asking them, perform that you love me, perform that I'm acceptable to you. Like, give me this sort of permission that's not really permission, but also like, am I doing it right? So there's a lot of needy validation, the energy that comes from that. And I feel like of course it's there, and that's okay. And then there's that piece of when we really step into ourselves, that we also then become an invitation for other people to do the same.
When I went from really letting go of that good girl programming, which for me, when I ended my marriage when I was 27 years old, that wasn't just hey, this relationship isn't aligned for me. It was like, hey, this person who I've been trying to be to receive love and acceptance from my family, particularly, and then also from my husband and his family, like that version of me is no longer here. Like that version of me is what was making me sick. It was making me depressed. It was making me anxious. It wasn't true to who I am. I was trying to fit myself. I think it's the saying, like where you're trying to fit like a square peg into a round hole, right?
Yeah.
Where like I was like, like why is this not working? And as soon as I let that go, like, and I was like, okay, I'm going to be more authentic, more vulnerable, and started just sharing more authentically in conversations with other women, being honest instead of them being like, how are you? And me being like, oh, I'm great. I was like, oh, actually, like, yeah, I'm going through something right now, and I'm going through a big transition right now. And I remember I met a woman who was teaching this Pilates class that I went to, and we just had a conversation afterwards, and she became one of my closest friends because I led with that authenticity. And that year on my birthday, it was, I don't know, maybe it was my 27th, 28th birthday. It was the first year on my birthday where I looked around, and I have like tears that are coming up because like I looked around and it was so many women there. And I felt like I had a deep, authentic connection with all of them. And it was the first birthday where I felt
Mm.
so seen, and where I felt like, oh, these people really want to be here. And I
Mm.
wasn't worried about like, oh, are they all going to get along? I was just like, oh, we're like, everyone's here for me. And like, because of the woman that I've become and how I've been showing up more authentically, like it's almost like these women showed up, literally felt like out of nowhere. Right. And it was like I was finally being seen for who I really am. But I had to go through that process of letting go of that, like needing to be perfect and needing to follow the plan and the rules in order to be able
Mm.
to experience that type of authentic connection.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like that was a similar experience too for me, because I've also been I'm on my second marriage, so I've been divorced. I got divorced when I was 30, and we'd been together since we were 21, and I actually ended up having an affair which totally blew everything up.
Mm,
And on the other side of that, I really had to ask myself, like, how did I get here?
mhm,
How did I get to this point where I was so, because I also told myself a story of one, I told myself, I can't help it. I'm just feeling what I'm feeling, and I just am a leaf blowing in the wind, and it's all just happening to me, and I have no control. And so I'm just like rolling with it. Two, I told myself that my husband secretly wanted to get divorced anyway.
mm,
So me ending our marriage was a favor to him. Couldn't have been further from the truth. I do think it was the right thing for us, but it's certainly not what he wanted.
mhm,
And his reaction when I said I wanted a divorce was so much different than I thought. And it's still like, sometimes I think back to like him in that time and just how cold I was. I was trying to escape, and I didn't know how to do it without blowing everything up.
mm,
And I think that because I was so afraid, I had this deep fear inside that I'm a bad person.
mm,
And that's why that's why I tried so hard to be good, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in that, I felt so stuck that in the end, it was like, I just have to blow this all up. On some level, I think I needed to be the bad guy so that I could like sort of go through that experience in the worst part of that, and then also have to do that deep work afterwards. Because once I recognized what the fallout was and the impact and how devastating it was for him, our families, our entire friendship group, and I was like, I never want to do this to someone again.
Mm-hmm.
And the only way to not hurt somebody like this is to understand who I am and what I'm about and be honest about that from the get-go. So I don't, I lied my way into it and I lied my way out of it, essentially.
Mm-hmm. Have you forgiven yourself for that?
Yeah, but there's still, I think that I wrestle with it sometimes because I feel that I have forgiven myself and I have a lot of compassion for that younger version of me. And, oh, I'm getting emotional. Yeah.
Mm.
And I still feel bad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I still feel bad that I feel that pain, and I know he's forgiven me. I know he's moved on. He's got a beautiful family. And I wish I could have done it a different way, and I couldn't.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't. And it's part of my journey. So I think it's also okay to have there be like parts of it that, I understand the patchwork of it. And I, of course, still wish that there was a less destructive way to go about it. Yeah.
Yeah, I asked you that because, for me as someone who was the one who chose to leave my marriage, there was a lot of guilt that I had to work through even before making the decision. It was often like, oh my God, I'm going to ruin his life. I'm going to make him feel unworthy. I'm going to do all these things. And he did feel a lot of those ways, especially initially after we separated. And then 5 years later, which was only last year, was the first time that we were able to come together and have an adult, normal, like we went out to coffee. And he even said, thank you. Like, thank you for, that took a lot of courage for you to do that. And I grew so much from that. And at the same time, it is still hard to reckon with, okay, I chose to get in that marriage, even though a part of me knew that it wasn't right for me. But at the time, I didn't have the courage. I didn't trust myself enough. I was way more concerned about disappointing or hurting other people than being honest and living in my truth. And so that's what I knew back then. I didn't know differently. And it still had an impact on other people. So I know that there's a lot of women who like really hold on to that and they just don't forgive themselves. And then it keeps them from allowing other relationships in because they hold on to this thing of like, I'm a bad person and I did this bad thing in the past. So that means that I'm not a good person and I can't trust myself or other people can't trust me or I don't deserve love because of this thing that happened in the past. And I just really, really appreciate you sharing this part of your story and being like, yeah, that's part of my story and that's not who I am anymore. And I really see how you took ownership for it and did the work to really take responsibility and look at your patterns and how did I get there? And then you evolved through that and you became who you are today, which I know is a woman of deep integrity. Yeah.
Yeah. It really, and I didn't do all the work at once. And I feel that that's important for people to know too, even if you've done something that you're not proud of or taken an action that's hurt other people, and maybe you didn't immediately do the work. I ended up in a relationship with my affair partner. And so that definitely delayed my work somewhat. I did some of the work, but it wasn't until after that relationship ended that I really started to see it clearly, because there was also a kind of get out of jail free card of, but he's my soulmate. So it's okay because, And so I think that we're never going to do the work even perfectly, right? There's always new levels and layers to it. Things are going to change. I'm sure I'm going to change still in my life. I hope I do. Like, I hope I'm not sitting here in 20 years exactly the same as I am today. Please don't let that be my fate. Like, please.
Yeah.
And that's great too. So I feel like the best that we can do is be who we are authentically today, and also not cling to that identity either, because the more we cling to it, the more that stops us from actually continuing to evolve and get deeper and deeper into ourselves.
Mm,
And I do feel like it's like sometimes these really intense moments in life, or these quote unquote bad decisions, or these things that we do that, weren't of our best selves, open a doorway to that pathway to find the truth of who we are. And I think it's a continual staircase going down deeper and deeper through our lives, and revealing more and more and more
mm.
as we go along.
Yeah, I love that visual. And I'm curious for you, like for your self-inquiry, are there any rituals, or are there any whether it's modalities or practices that help you with that self-inquiry to continue looking at, okay, what parts of me do want to shed and be released, and like what is no longer in alignment with who I am? Or is it more like life brings opportunities and challenges your way, and then that kind of guides you into up leveling or evolving into that more authentic version of yourself?
Yeah, I feel like it's been both at different times. When I was really starting to get into this work, it was a lot. Like Kundalini yoga was one of those things, feminine embodiment practices, Tantra, meditation, all those types of things. Even I used to love going to like chanting and things like that, because singing for me has always been like a doorway to opening to a deeper part of feeling. And it's something I do, for my pleasure, not for, I'm not a singer,
Performance.
everybody.
Yeah.
But I feel that now it's more so, I feel that it's just a part of my day-to-day life. And what it is for me is the listening. So I feel that over time of paying attention to my intuition, paying attention to those feelings of something feels off here.
Hmm.
And sometimes I can't immediately pinpoint what's off about it. Like I'm like, oh, I'm hearing these words, or I'm saying this thing and it feels right, but there's something telling me I'm missing something. And so the more that I listen to that, the more it reveals itself.
Mm.
So I feel, yeah, it's like a daily sort of course correcting almost.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that answer. And I think that really speaks to first, we approach these kinds of layers of growth from maybe a more, I don't know, want to say logical, but there's like a strategy to it, or there's a methodology of like, okay, I'm going to do this practice, or I'm going to go to this therapist, or I'm going to go do this type of modality. And
Right.
then eventually it becomes an embodiment of who you are. And the more connected you are to your body, the more that you feel and you hear your intuition and you know what it sounds like, and you trust it faster. Like in the
Mm,
past, like my intuition would speak to me, but it would have to like scream at me to get my attention. And then now it's like those subtleties that you're talking about. Ooh, something feels kind of off there. And something that I've gotten a lot better at is having the conversations faster that I need to have with the people in my life,
yeah.
or making the decisions in my business faster than I used to, which is also part of like that ego part that wants to cling on to, oh, I don't want to have that conversation because it might like ruffle some feathers or bring things up, or I don't want to make this change in my business because it feels easier to stay in this version of myself. And that feels really hard. And what I found is the more we get better at like noticing when something's off, acknowledging it, listening to ourselves, feeling it, processing whatever we need to process, and then having the conversation or make the decision or take the action, the faster the transformation can happen without it having to be this whole like big process that we need to go through. And I think that's just the same as developing any skill over
Mm.
time. You're like, it's self mastery is kind of, and we're not that I know everything and I'm still have
Are
so
you
much
sure?
to learn.
I think you do.
I still have so much to learn. But like I do feel, and I feel that resonance with women who
Mm.
are committed to doing that work and who are just like in that ongoing evolving process. Like that's like the North Star of like continuing to be more and more authentic versions of ourselves.
Yeah. And I feel like there's a really important piece in there too around the intuition, you know, how it's like it shouts when you don't listen. If you start listening, it starts to be a whisper. And there are even times now where sometimes I will dismiss it. I'll say, oh, but, you know, this person said this, so I want to believe the best in them. Or, you know, maybe I'm off here. Maybe this is my piece, right? Where it's like tend to take a lot of personal responsibility, and
Mm.
that's great. And then also sometimes that can be like, this must be something going on with me. I must have something that I need to work through and evolve through.
Mhm.
And it's not always the case. And I feel like it's also recognizing when that happens, right? When the intuition is speaking and there's that pause moment of, well, is this me or is this you? Is this my stuff or your stuff? You know, is this something for me to work on or something that's actually off here? I used to make myself wrong for sort of first thinking, oh, it's probably my piece.
Mhm.
And now I'm like, actually, that's really good. It's good to look at those things. And then we sort of do that deeper inquiry. Say, is there something here for me to move past? Is this a true intuition or is it leading me somewhere else? And okay, now I've worked on my piece. Now I know what I want to share here. It's also allowing us to come even more into like that inner sense of confidence and also doing things, I believe, from a more loving place,
Mhm.
because we're also not making somebody else wrong,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm so there with you with first starting with the personal responsibility and being like, oh, is there something that I need to clean up here? Is there something like, how have I contributed to this? But then I have had times in my path where I've taken over
Yeah,
responsibility and then you're not actually holding other people accountable, which kind of is a form of people pleasing, or I don't know,
definitely.
there's another word that wants to come through, but it's like, yeah, when you take too much responsibility and
Mm-hmm.
it's like, no, 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 they're an adult too. Like, they also get to take responsibility, right? We've co-created this dynamic in some way. And yeah, I think that over time we just get, more attuned to those dynamics, and we still like sometimes stay for too long, or we don't make the most aligned decision, and then we learn from that. It's all opportunities to learn.
Yeah, and I also sometimes wonder about if it's actually possible to stay too long. Like, I often think about what is free will and what is destiny,
Mhm.
really, because I believe that we make the best choice we can in the moment with the information we have.
Mhm.
And as time goes on, we have more information so we can make better choices. But I'm like I think back to me, you know, having an affair. I'm like, I don't think I really had a choice. I don't think I could see another way.
Mm.
And I see that in other moments in my life too, where I've made a decision or a choice that later I'm like, oh, now I have this information. Now I see, okay, what I could have done better here.
Yeah.
So next time I'm making a decision, I've got now this information so I can refine my decision making, my action taking process. But I think that I couldn't have done, like, I couldn't make the decisions I make today when I was 30. No
Mhm.
way. Absolutely no way. And I wouldn't make the decisions I made when I was 30 now at 45.
Mhm.
No fucking way. Like,
Mhm.
forget about it.
Yeah.
You know, so I think it's also like good to know that we're doing the best that we can and our best will get better over time. And
Yeah.
sometimes it will still suck. And
I
that's
love that
okay too.
perspective. I love that perspective. Yeah. I also love like the humor in it, because I do think sometimes we can take it so seriously, and yeah, I love the mixture of like, oh, we can go really deep, but then we can also laugh about it, and I think that's so important.
We have to laugh about it
Yeah.
sometimes. It's really important.
So
We're so
good.
funny humans.
Yeah, we are. We are. We think we know, but we don't.
No, we
Yeah.
know nothing.
Yeah.
We're just
We're just doing our best that we can in this moment.
bumbling along.
Yeah. Okay. So there's this archetype that you talk about, and I love this archetype. She's the rebel queen. And I want to kind of open the door for our listeners to really understand, like, what does it mean to embody their rebel queen? And do you feel like every woman has a rebel queen inside of her?
I definitely think every woman has a rebel queen inside of her. And I feel that each woman's expression of the rebel queen is unique to them.
Mm.
So I don't think that there's my archetype could be different from someone else's. But to me, the rebel queen is embodying that archetype and that energy is really standing for being your own permission to be your authentic self, whatever that means to you. So for a woman who perhaps is used to kind of being the boss and like, yeah, I'm like, telling everyone else what to do, like maybe her rebel queen is a softened version of herself.
Mm.
For me, my rebel queen was kind of like a bit more fiery, has that
Edgy.
fiery, edgy kind of energy because I came from that real good girl background. So I think that it's different for every woman, but it's about not needing somebody else's permission to be your authentic self. And it's very much coming from a loving place, because I also feel the rebel queen brings so much love into other people's lives, because the more we accept ourselves, the more we accept others and have capacity and space for them to mess up, make mistakes, grow, learn, evolve. If we're not trying to be perfect, we stop needing everyone else to be.
Mm. Yeah, that reflection, that mirror reflection of how you're feeling about yourself then gets reflected in how you treat and see other people too. Yeah, what I love about your rebel queen and that I see a lot of myself in, because I also have gone through that journey of going from good girl to then really being in like definitely different phases of, for me, connecting with my wild woman and being in that bold, confident, like fiery expression, is that even with that, there's still like a softness and a sweetness. And I think that a lot of women are afraid that if they are no longer the good girl, they're not being nice all of the time, then it means that they're a bitch, or it means that other people are going to be afraid of them or perceive them as like being too much or too intense. And like, I am intense. Like I got a Scorpio rising. Like I am intense, and I do have deep feelings and I do have big feelings and my expression is big. And what I found is that when I do take up space and when I do allow myself to be in that expression, it activates something in other women. They're like, oh, like I want that. Like I know that's inside of me and I want that too. And coming back to what I was sharing about, like, you can still be really sweet, right? I also, I think for some reason, I don't know if this is just like a regular human thing that's very, very subconscious thing of like, oh, I'm not a good person or I'm a bad person or like I need to prove that I'm nice or good. And I do think a part of that is our conditioning growing up with like having all these rules and punishment if you're bad and all these things, right? But like ultimately, the people who really know me know that I am really sweet and caring. And I remember I had an acupuncture session once and she does some type of like channeling and reading. And like my acupuncturist said, like you have such a sweetness in you. And I hadn't really seen that in myself in a long time. Like, I think as a little girl, I was really sweet. And I do know that I'm very caring and kind and generous. And like, that's part of who I am. But I hadn't really acknowledged that, like, oh, I am really sweet. And like there's something beautiful about that, and that I can be powerful and I can be sweet. I can be confident and bold and I can be soft, and that kind of like having that duality. And I feel that in you. I feel that like the range of all of that. Do you feel that in yourself?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I feel that. I think the more that I've come into myself, the softer I become. Like I am like a very loving, giving, caring person, and that has led me into all kinds of crazy toxic situations in my past because I lacked discernment.
Hmm.
So I was just like, I believe everyone. I try to do everything good. I'm just give. And I feel that part of that maturing is also developing the discernment around where am I where am I over giving versus giving? Where am I generous versus like trying to please?
Hmm.
And with that discernment, there comes a softening. And so I feel that I'm naturally a loving, giving person, and I'm also naturally very playful. I like to yes, I have depth. I used to always try to lead with my depth. I remember when I first moved to Austin, I'm like, I have to make sure everyone knows how deep I am. And then I was like, this is so fucking boring. Like, I just want to like
You're like,
fuck
I want to
around
have
and have fun. And so
fun.
then I was like, God, I need to like let this thing go of like, I have to lead with this. I'm like, people are going to see that. They'll see it, but
They'll feel it too.
they'll feel it. Yeah. So that was an interesting first moment where I got so bored with myself. If I'm bored, everyone else is going to be bored.
Yeah.
So yeah, I do think that we all have multiple dimensions to us, and when we give ourselves the permission to be soft and fierce at the same time, to be playful and also deep, it like creates so much richness in our inner experience and also our outward experience with others.
Yeah, something that I'm feeling for you, like especially with that discernment, like you embody this, like, don't fuck with me, like you
Mm.
can't fuck with me. Like there's like this depth of like, okay, I've got this like power, right? And there's still that sweetness. And I think that's like, even when we talk about boundaries, like often people can think boundaries are really harsh and like they can be delivered harshly. And what you were talking about earlier, the messy middle, like sometimes we fuck up at first and we're like, ooh, I said that a little bit too intensely, or I didn't deliver that the way that I wanted it to. But over time we can have that energy. And to me, I just have to set less boundaries because people just see me as someone who has a lot of, like whether it's self-respect or like
Mm.
they just know that like there's a standard that I hold
Yeah.
for myself and for others. Right. So I feel like that discernment is so key where like people aren't then taking advantage of your kindness and your sweetness and your generosity because you're holding that standard and that value for yourself.
Yeah. It's like, I feel true power whispers,
Mm.
doesn't need to shout,
Hmm.
even though shouting can be fun sometimes. But yeah, it does. And I feel like I know when I first started trying to get boundaries happening, like I was really like, because I was bracing because I was afraid
Hmm.
that I wasn't going to hold my boundary. So I had to be really like strong with it. And now I'm like, if you do this, this is what's going to happen. Or if this happens, then I'm going to not, I'm going to make this choice.
Hmm.
And there's also, again, like I just keep coming back to this word, relaxation in that, because I know I'm going to do what I say I'm going to do.
Hmm.
If I say I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it. Come hell or high water, no matter how hard it is, I'm going to do it. And so that also means that people don't really fuck with me
Hmm.
because like, no, it's not going to go well for you if you do. But it's also like, I'm just going to take myself away. Like I don't need to fight you,
Hmm.
but I will remove myself
Yeah.
if like something is happening, and I'm not going to just like, I think also it's good. I love to give people the opportunity as well of like, hey, if this continues, this is what I'm going to be doing,
Hmm.
and allow them the opportunity to also course correct themselves. And if something happens and someone's like, you know what, like I realized this is where I was coming from, da 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 da, I really want to be better in this way. I'm like, amazing, let's do this. I love it. I've actually had so much depth come out of friendships when we've had conflict.
Hmm.
Like it's actually evolved our friendship
Same.
even better. And I'm like, oh, now I know I can really trust you, because I
Hmm.
can trust you that we can have hard conversations. We can understand each other, have compassion and empathy for each other, respect ourselves, respect each other, and grow and learn from it.
Hmm.
That to me is like,
That's
chef's
like
kiss.
the only thing I'm really available for.
Right.
I don't want it if it's not that.
I kind of want to have an argument with every friend just to see what happens. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like, I'm like, once that's done, I'm like, oh, okay, we got that out of the way. Even
Yeah.
though in the moment I hate it because I don't like disappointing people. I don't
Yeah.
like upsetting people. I would never do it intentionally, but sometimes it happens.
Hmm. Yeah. which is the nature of any dynamic when you've got two people coming together, being in friendship or relationship. There's going to be disagreements, or there's going to be things where we see it from different perspectives, and
Yeah.
then there's the opportunity to see how does this person work through things when that comes up. Yeah. So there's one final piece that I want to talk about today, even though I could literally talk to you forever. Like, let's just hang out here all day long.
I know, time
Cancel
flies.
all the other interviews. Just kidding. Um, so I want to hear like the rebel queen when it comes to relationship, when it
Mm.
comes to partnership. Like,
Mhm.
tell me more about in your relationship how that shows up, and maybe for women who have been in that good girl place before, like how does the rebel queen actually help you to enhance romantic partnership?
Yeah, I love this. One of my favorite things to talk about. Okay, don't waste time. All right, so here's what I feel. Whoops. Here's what I feel. I feel that men really want to be challenged. I think deep down, that's what they want, regardless of what some may say.
Mhm.
But I think we all need to be challenged in order to really grow and become our best selves. And in my experience, and what I see amongst friends also, is the women who have the best relationships are the ones that were not afraid, or maybe they were afraid but they did it anyway. They said, hey, this is what I want, this is what I feel I deserve, this is I'm inviting you to rise into. So they made an invitation to their partner to rise in some way and become a better, stronger version of himself, to live up to either who he says he is, or to like the vision that she sees for them in their future. And every woman that I know that's done that, and that could be things like saying, hey, like I really want a committed relationship and I see you as that person, that potential person, and I don't want to be casual anymore. Are you available for this? If you're not, that's fine. We can go our separate ways. But if you are, if you want to stay in connection with me, this is what I need.
Mhm.
It's like, I said this to my husband about 6 months in. I said, I see marriage in my future. I want to get married again. And I want to know, is that something you see in your future?
Mhm.
So it's like, it's not forcing anything. It's making an invitation and
Mhm.
it's letting them know, right? It's a boundary, right? It's like the consequences. Like, this is what I see. This is my invitation to you. Do you want to come here and meet me in this place or not? Either
Mhm.
way, it's fine. But like, if you don't meet me here, then I'm not going to be here.
Mhm.
And I have really seen men like really rise and step into that sort of kingly energy through that challenge. And a lot of men are used to women that are just, trying to please them, say yes to everything. And they might even say like, oh, I just want a partner who's like me, who's going to do everything, want it all the way I want. But they tend to get bored.
Mhm.
And that's why we see often, maybe a couple who they've kind of been on and off situationship for a long, long time. Then he ends up meeting someone else and he's like married within 6 months,
Mm.
because it's like, I think men respect when women,
Have a sense of self and who
right.
stand within like their desires and their needs. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's like some type of visual that's coming through for me around this where it's like as if you're like pushing into a wall and you actually have something to push against versus like everything you want and everything the way you want it to go, it just happens, and then it's
Mm,
like, oh, you kind of get bored of that, right? But it's like if you have something like a little bit to push against and where you have someone who has a voice, like what I'm hearing is really women using their voice and
yeah.
sharing their needs instead of placating or instead of doing it because they think that's what their partner wants them to do. And like if they the most challenging part of this is being willing to say the thing that could potentially lead to an outcome that maybe is not what you want,
Yeah.
like you saying to your partner at that time like, hey, I want marriage, and then if he was like, I don't want marriage, But for you to be so rooted in yourself, to be willing to say, no matter what this person's decision is, I'm going to be okay.
Mm,
I'm sure I'll have emotions about it. It would be upsetting if they don't rise, but like that I'm willing to do it for me and I'm willing to do it anyways and to stand in that because that's what I want in my life. And either this person gets to rise to meet me, which oftentimes they do, or it becomes very apparent that they're not going to do that and you're not heading in the right same direction.
mm,
And so there's a better partner out there for them. There's a better partner out there for you.
yeah.
And it really does take a lot to be so rooted in your sovereignty to be like, okay, I'm gonna have the hard conversation. I'm gonna say the thing that I need to say. And like you said, without that, it often doesn't lead to the outcome that you want anyways.
Right. And I feel like sometimes women think that, oh, once if I'm in my rebel queen, it's going to be easy for me to say those things. It's never going to be easy to say those things
Mm-hmm.
because the reason why we're asking for them is because they matter to us. And this person, our partner, this man matters to us.
Mm-hmm.
And we want something with this man. So it is hard to say, hey, this is my invitation and this is what's going to happen if it doesn't go
Mm-hmm.
that way. I'm going to go. That's terrifying.
Mm-hmm.
It's always going to be terrifying to say something like that. But it's like, it doesn't matter. You do it anyway. Like that's the rebel queen. It's like, it's scary. It's terrifying. It's messy. And I'm doing it anyway because it's true.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm doing it from love. And it is from love because it's true.
Mm-hmm.
And if it goes the way I want it to, great. And if it doesn't go the way I want it to, then it wasn't meant to go that way. And that is the most loving outcome.
Mm. So with you there, like the devotion to truth above all else to me, I'm like, that's what my soul is here for.
Mm-hmm.
And again, like, especially in a romantic relationship, like, I only want that if it is truth, you know?
Yeah.
And that's a courageous path. It's very different to what we're taught in like the value. I think our culture teaches us like, oh, it's about the amount of years that you stay together. And it's like, okay, to me, it's about the quality and the depth and the truth of alignment.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I love this conversation. Thank you so much for being here. And I
Thanks
know
for
this is
having me.
literally just like such a little taste of your world and your magic. And for our listeners who want to keep learning from you, where can they find you and what are you up to?
Am I up to?
Yeah.
So you can find me on Instagram at Sophia_Le_page, like a page from a book. Right now I'm doing a little pivot in my business. So I've started doing iconic branding for iconic women. So helping women kind of find that rebel queen authentic expression through their visuals,
Mm-hmm.
through the way the imagery and the reels and their content is speaking to their audience. So it has a frequency that their people can feel. One thing that I love, because I've coached women for many years, and it was always about like coaxing out their authentic expression.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like I've always had a really good eye for seeing underneath the surface of who someone is. Like, what's the little piece they're hiding that's like their secret sauce, their magic.
Mm-hmm.
And so now what I'm doing is I'm taking those skills and I'm like, all right, I see this part of you that really is your unique essence that makes you different, that is kind of like your iconic energy, and then highlighting that and showcasing that visually for them. It's so fun. I fucking love it. I'm having the time of my life.
Yes.
And you can go find it on my Instagram. I've got my website there, all that stuff.
Amazing. Well, we'll link
Yeah.
that all in the show notes. And I love that you're doing a pivot. I'm all about a good pivot and really like answering the call when it comes. And yeah, we were sitting at dinner last night with a few friends and you've done some of their websites and have been supporting with branding and they're all amazing. So I'm excited to see what you're creating and I'm interested in your iconic
Woohoo!
branding. So here we go.
Whoops.
Oh. End with a bang. Well, thank you so much for being
Thank you.
here. Yeah, so grateful we got to connect in person.
Yeah, thank you so much, Amy. This has been a beautiful conversation.